there is a reason why, for generations, when the world's biggest decisions were made, America was always at the head of the table. It wasn't just because of our economy or our military might. It was because we showed up, we were the glue, we were the ones who brought folks together, even when we disagreed, because we understood that if you aren't at the table, you are on the menu. But today, I have to be honest with you, something has broken, and it hurts to say this, but right now, the chair at the head of the table is empty. Before I tell you exactly what happened in Johannesburg today and why it should worry every single one of us, I need you to do something for me. If you believe that America deserves to lead, not retreat, please hit that subscribe button right now. Join us as a member. We need to build a community here that understands the stakes. And I want you with me for this entire journey. So let's talk about Johannesburg, the G20 Summit. This is the Super Bowl of diplomacy. It's where the leaders of the 20 biggest economies meet to steer the world. It is where we protect American jobs, where we secure our supply chains, and where we make sure the rules of the road, our workers and our businesses. For decades, no American president would dream of missing it. It is simply too important. But today, for the first time in history, the United States is missing in action. President Trump has refused to attend. He has boycotted the summit entirely. And the reason he gave, he cited stories about the persecution of minority populations in South Africa, stories that our own intelligence agencies and diplomats on the ground have not verified in the way he describes. Now, protecting human rights is vital. It is who we are. But you don't protect human rights by staying home and sulking. You go there, you look leaders in the eye, you press them, you do the hard work of diplomacy. Instead, we stayed home, and here is the heartbreaking part. The world moved on without us, while the president sat this one out. The other 19 leaders didn't wait. They went ahead and drafted a declaration. They set the agenda for the global economy without a single American voice in the room. Think about that. Decisions about trade, about energy, about the future of money itself. Decisions that will affect your wallet and your children's future were made today without America having a say. We are seeing something unprecedented. We are seeing an America that is isolating itself, not out of strength, but out of fear and grievance. And while some folks might cheer this as sticking it to the globalists, the reality is much colder. When we step back, others step in. China was there. Russia's representatives were there. Europe was there. They're writing the rules now, and we are leaving ourselves out in the cold. This isn't about one man. This is about who we are as a country. Are we the leader of the free world, or are we an island? Because right now, looking at that empty chair in South Africa, I don't see strength. I see a retreat that leaves us smaller, weaker, and more alone. And I know deep down that the American people deserve better than to be sidelined in the story of our own future. Stick with me, because in the next part, I'm going to tell you exactly how the other world leaders reacted when they realized America wasn't coming, and the specific opportunities we just handed over to our competitors on a silver platter. You need to hear this. You know, when you walk into a room like the one at the NASREC Expo Center in Johannesburg, there's usually a hum, a kind of electric energy. It's the sound of deals being made and the future being written. But today, the most deafening sound in that room was silence. Silence coming from the seat that should have been occupied by the President of the United States. I want you to really picture this. You have leaders from 19 of the most powerful countries on earth sitting around a massive circular table. You have President Ramaphosa of South Africa, the host looking to lead. You have President Xi of China. You have Prime Minister Modi of India. And right there, glaringly empty, is the spot reserved for America. Usually when the American president walks in, the room shifts, the conversation stops until we sit down. But today, they didn't wait. And that is what should keep you up at night. The moment they realized President Trump wasn't coming and that he wasn't even sending Vice President Vance, but a junior embassy staffer, the mood changed. It shifted from confusion to calculation. I've been in these meetings. I know how these leaders think. When they saw that empty chair, they didn't see a protest. They saw an opening. President Xi didn't waste a second. He spent the day shaking hands, signing side deals, and presenting China as the reliable partner for the global South, while we were tweeting from home about grievances that the rest of the world has already investigated and dismissed. China was busy securing access to minerals, trade routes, and markets that rightfully should have been ours. And it gets worse. By the end of the day, something happened that has never happened in the history of the G20. They released a Leaders Declaration, a joint statement on the global economy without the United States. Usually, nothing gets signed unless we agree to it. We have always had the veto power of presence. But because we boycotted, they simply moved on. They wrote the rules for the next year of global trade, climate policy, and debt management without a single American protecting your interests. Think about what that means. It means the safeguards we usually fight for, protections for American workers, rules against intellectual property theft, standards for fair competition, were likely left on the cutting room floor. We gave up our voice, we surrendered our leverage, and for what? To make a political point that only isolated us further. We are watching the torch being passed, not because someone took it from us, but because we dropped it. And the scariest part is the world is learning that they can function just fine without us. In the next part, I'm going to bring this home. I'm going to explain exactly how this boycott in South Africa is going to hit your bank account here in America, and why the America First slogan is starting to look a lot like America Alone. You cannot afford to miss this connection. You might be sitting there right now, maybe at your kitchen table or on your commute, asking a very fair question. You might be asking, Barack, why should I care about a meeting happening thousands of miles away in South Africa? How does a boycott in Johannesburg affect my life in Ohio or Arizona or Pennsylvania? And I get that it feels distant. It feels like just another political drama on the news. But let me be very clear. This is not just about politicians in suits taking photos. This is about your job. This is about the price of your groceries. This is about the security of your retirement savings. See, when the G20 meets, they are deciding the price of doing business around the world. They are deciding how much tax corporations pay. They are deciding who gets to sell what to whom. When America is in that room, we fight to make sure American cars, American wheat, and American technology can be sold fairly. We fight to stop other countries from cheating. We fight to keep prices stable, so that when you go to fill up your gas tank, you aren't shocked by the price. But today, because we weren't there, we didn't have a voice in those decisions. Imagine trying to negotiate a raise at your job, but you refuse to go into your boss's office. You stay home because you were angry about the office paint color. Guess what happens? You don't get the raise, and someone else probably gets your promotion. That is exactly what happened today. By boycotting the summit to make a point about South African domestic policy, a point that that could have been made face-to-face. The current administration left American workers defenseless. While we were absent, countries like Brazil and Russia pushed for new trade routes that bypassed the American dollar. If that gains traction, it makes everything you buy more expensive. It makes your dollar worth less. And here's the other thing about the economy. It hates uncertainty. Markets crave stability. When the President of the United States acts impulsively, when he breaks decades of protocol and leaves an empty chair at the world's biggest table, investors get nervous, they pull back. And when they pull back, businesses stop hiring. The stock market gets shaky. That hits your 401 kilobits. That hits your pension. We are seeing a strategy that prioritizes headlines over your household budget. It feels good in a speech to say we walked away, to say we are teaching them a lesson. It gets cheers at a rally, but in the real world of global economics, walking away doesn't teach them a lesson. It just gives them a license to ignore us. We used to be the anchor of the global economy. Today, we look like a ship cutting itself loose and drifting out to sea. And the rough waters are going to be felt right here at home by hardworking families who didn't sign up for this kind of isolation. In the next part, I want to talk about our friends. I want to talk about the nations that have stood by America for 70 years, our allies in Europe and Asia, and how their shock at this boycott is turning into something much more dangerous for our national security. You need to know who is still watching our back and who is starting to look away. We need to talk about our friends. I am talking about the nations that have stood shoulder to shoulder with America for 70 years. I'm talking about the United Kingdom, France, Japan, Germany, South Korea. These are the countries that share our values. They fight alongside our soldiers. They share intelligence to keep our cities safe from terrorism. They are our family on the global stage. And today in Johannesburg, our family was confused. They were hurt. And frankly, they were scared. I want you to imagine the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom or the Chancellor of Germany walking into that summit hall. They were expecting to coordinate with their most important partner, the United States, on how to handle threats from Russia, how to deal with instability in the Middle East, and how to keep the internet free and open. Instead, they found themselves looking at an empty seat. Diplomats on the ground are reporting that the mood among our allies wasn't just disappointment. It was a feeling of abandonment. You see, alliances are a lot like friendships. They are built on trust. They are built on the simple idea that when it matters, you will show up. You don't ghost your friends when things get tough or when you have a disagreement. You show up, you talk it out, and you find a way forward. But President Trump didn't just skip a meeting. He sent a message to our oldest friends that America is no longer reliable. He told them that our domestic political grievances are more important to us than our shared security. And that is a dangerous game to play. When our allies see that we are willing to walk away from the G20, they start to wonder, if America won't show up for a trade meeting, will they show up if we are attacked? Will they show up if our democracy is threatened? Once that doubt creeps in, the foundation of global peace starts to crack. And do you know who loves seeing those cracks? Our adversaries. You better believe that in Moscow and other capitals where freedom is a dirty word, they are celebrating tonight. They love it when America separates itself from Europe and Asia. They love it when the West is divided. Today's boycott didn't make America strong. It did the work of our rivals for them. It drove a wedge between us and our friends that might take years to fix. We are already hearing reports that European leaders began holding side meetings with China and India, meetings that America was not invited to, just to figure out a plan B for a world where the United States sits on the sidelines. Think about that. They are planning a future without us. We are safer when we have friends. We are stronger when we stand together. Isolation doesn't make us secure. It makes us a target. It makes us vulnerable. We are watching the dismantling of the network that has kept World War at bay for decades, all for a moment of political theater. In the next part, I want to bring this back to our own soil. I want to talk about the reaction right here in America. I want to talk about why some folks are cheering this move, why others are horrified, and why this division is exactly what keeps us from fixing the real problems in our own backyard. We have to look in the mirror now. We have to look at what is happening right here in our own neighborhoods, on our social media feeds, and at our dinner tables. Because this decision to boycott the G20 hasn't just separated America from the world. It has separated Americans from each other, and that perhaps is the deepest tragedy of all. If you turn on the news today or scroll through your phone, you are seeing two completely different movies. On one side, there are folks cheering this decision, and I understand that feeling. They see a president who is finally saying no. They see it as strength. They feel that for too long America has been taken advantage of, or that we've been too polite in the face of things we disagree with. For them, that empty chair in Johannesburg isn't a loss. It's a badge of honor. It's a sign that we don't need anyone else's approval. But then there's the other side. There are millions of Americans who woke up today feeling a deep, sinking sense of embarrassment. They look at that empty chair and they don't see strength. They see a forfeit. They see a team that didn't even show up to play the game. They are worried about what this means for their children's future in a world where America is no longer the one steering the ship. They feel like we are shrinking, turning inward, and hiding from the responsibilities that made us great in the first place. So we have pride on one side and shame on the other. And while we are busy fighting about who is right, we are typing angry comments and shouting at our screens. The rest of the world is moving forward. They aren't waiting for us to resolve our identity crisis. This division is dangerous. A house divided against itself cannot stand, and a nation that cannot agree on its role in the world cannot lead it when we are so focused on owning the other side. We're scoring political points at home. We lose sight of the bigger picture. We stop asking what is best for America and start asking what makes my side feel good right now. The truth is, foreign policy shouldn't be about feelings. It shouldn't be about making a scene to satisfy a political base. And it shouldn't be about apologizing for who we are either. It should be about cold, hard interests. It should be about results. And right now, the result is that we are more divided at home and more isolated abroad. We are shouting at each other in a burning room. And while we argue, our competitors are outside building the fire trucks. We need to find a way to come back together, to understand that being at the table isn't about selling out. It's about standing up for every single American, regardless of who they voted for. In the next part, I want to dig deeper into the specific excuse given for this boycott. The situation in South Africa. We need to talk about the difference between real human rights advocacy and using serious issues as political props. Because what happened today didn't actually help anyone on the ground. Let's take a moment to really look at the reason President Trump gave for this historic boycott. He told the world he wasn't going to Johannesburg because of the alleged persecution of minority white populations in South Africa. Now, I want to be very clear here. Violence against anyone, anywhere, based on the color of their skin or their occupation is wrong. If there are human rights abuses happening, they need to be called out, they need to be investigated, and if people are suffering, they deserve the world's attention. But here is the hard truth about leadership. You do not help people by turning your back on them. If the president truly cared about the safety of farmers or minority groups in South Africa, the absolute best thing he could have done was to get on Air Force One, fly to Johannesburg, sit down with President Ramaphosa and look him in the eye. He should have brought the evidence. He should have used the immense power and influence of the United States to demand answers and demand protection. That is what a leader does. You go to the trouble spot, you shine a light on it, you use the leverage of your presence to force a conversation that might be uncomfortable. When I was president, we didn't just visit countries we agreed with, we went to places where we had deep disagreements, because that is the only way you actually move the needle. You cannot solve a problem if you refuse to be in the same room with it. By staying home, President Trump didn't help a single person in South Africa. In fact, he likely made things worse. He turned a serious human rights discussion into a political stunt. He used these people's lives as a prop for a domestic narrative, rather than actually doing the hard work of diplomacy, ensure their safety, and by doing so, he stripped the United States of our ability to advocate for them. Since we weren't at the summit, we couldn't put language in the final declaration to protect them. We couldn't pull allies aside to build a coalition of support. We silenced ourselves. It is the difference between tweet diplomacy and real diplomacy. One gets you likes on social media. The other actually saves lives. What we saw today was a performance, not a policy, and it sets a terrible precedent. Are we now going to boycott every country where we have a concern? Because if we do, we are going to find ourselves very lonely very quickly. The world is a messy place. It requires engagement, not retreat. We missed a massive opportunity today. We could have stood on African soil and spoken up for human rights and for fairness for everyone. We could have shown that America fights for the vulnerable, no matter who they are. Instead, we let the stage empty. We let the moment pass. And the tragedy is, the very people the president claims he wanted to defend are now more isolated than before, because the one voice that could have made a difference chose to stay silent in Washington. In the next part, I want to zoom out. I want to talk about the other players in the room. Specifically, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. While we were absent, they were very busy building a new financial alliance that is designed to challenge the American dollar. You need to understand what happened behind those closed doors while we were boycotting. You know, there's an old saying in sports: you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But in global politics, it is actually much worse than that. In global politics, if you don't take the shot, the other team takes the ball and runs down the field to score against you. And that is exactly what we watched happen today with a group of countries known as the BRICS nations. Now, if you aren't familiar with that term, BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These are powerful economies. For years, they have been trying to build a club that doesn't rely on the United States. They want to build a world where they don't have to follow our rules or use our money. Usually, the United States is there at these summits to keep things balanced. We are there to remind the world that the American economy is the safest, most reliable place to do business. We are there to defend the American dollar as the king of global currency. But today, because President Trump decided to stay home, the field was wide open. With no American president to push back, these nations got to work. They spent the day in Johannesburg holding private meetings, looking at maps, and planning a new financial system that leaves us out. They talked openly about de-dollarization. That is a fancy word, but what it means for you is very simple and very scary. It means they want to stop using American money to buy oil, minerals, and goods. They want to trade in their own currencies. Why does this matter to you? Because the strength of the American dollar is what keeps our goods affordable. It is what allows us to borrow money at lower rates. It is what gives us power. If the world stops needing dollars, the value of the money in your pocket goes down. Your gas gets more expensive, your mortgage rates go up. While we were boycotting, China and Russia were pitching a vision of the world where America is just another country, not the leader. They told the other developing nations, look, America isn't even here. They don't care about you. Join us instead. And because we weren't there to argue our case, that message landed. We handed them a microphone and left the room. We witnessed a massive shift in momentum. Today, we allowed our biggest competitors to organize against us without offering a single word of defense. We let them build the foundation of a house where America isn't welcome. And once those foundations are poured, it is very, very hard to tear them up. We are risking the economic privilege we have enjoyed since World War II, all for a moment of political grandstanding. In the next part, I want to take you into the future, specifically the near future. I want to discuss the ripple effect this is going to have on American businesses who operate overseas. If you are a small business owner or work for a company that exports goods, you need to hear what this isolationism means for your bottom line starting tomorrow morning. Let's talk business, and I don't mean the stock market on Wall Street. I'm talking about the small business owner, Wisconsin, who makes machine parts. I'm talking about the farmer in Iowa who sells soybeans. I'm talking about the tech startup in Austin trying to sell its software to the world. If you fall into any of those categories, or if you work for a company that does what happened in Johannesburg today is going to cost you money. See, American businesses have always had a secret weapon when they go abroad. The American government, when our companies try to sell goods in foreign countries, they rely on the president and his team to clear the path. We fight for fair rules. We make sure our products aren't hit with unfair taxes. We ensure that when a contract is signed, it is honored. That is what we do with the G20. We act as the ultimate shield for American commerce, but today that shield was left at home because President Trump boycotted the summit. There was no one there to demand fair treatment for American exports. There was no one to push back against new tariffs that other countries might want to slap on our goods. And believe me, when the cat is away, the mice will play. While we were absent, countries like China and the European nations were busy writing new trade agreements with the developing world, agreements that favor their companies, not ours. They are setting standards for technology and manufacturing that fit their products, while ours get pushed to the side. Imagine you are a construction company trying to bid on a project in Africa or Asia. Usually the US government is there to support you. But now the leaders of those countries are looking at the empty American chair and thinking, why should we buy American if America won't even talk to us? So they give that contract to a Chinese firm instead. That isn't just a lost deal, that is lost revenue. That is fewer jobs back here in the States. That is a factory shift getting cut because the orders stop coming in. This isolationism isn't just a political choice. It is a tax on American opportunity. Every time we step back, we make it harder for our businesses to compete. We are essentially tying one hand behind our back and telling our workers to go fight for market share against countries that are using every tool they have to win. And here's the kicker. Regaining that market share is incredibly hard. Once a country switches its supply chain competitor, they don't just switch back overnight. We are losing customers today that we might not get back for a decade. This boycott is burning bridges that American businesses need to cross to sell their products. In the next part, I want to talk about something less tangible but just as powerful, our reputation. I want to talk about soft power. The reason people around the world listen to our music, watch our movies, and dream of coming here, and how this angry, closed-off approach is destroying the American dream in the eyes of the world. I want to talk to you about something that you can't hold in your hand, but it is more powerful than any tank or missile we have in our arsenal. It is something called soft power. Now, that might sound like a fancy term, but it is actually very simple. It is the reason why, for decades, kids in tiny villages halfway across the world grew up wearing New York Yankees hats. It is the reason why people risk everything to get a visa to come here. It is the reason the world listens to our music, watches our movies, and studies our Constitution. They don't do those things because they are afraid of us. They do them because they admire us. They admire the idea of America. They admire a country that is confident enough to listen, strong enough to admit when things are hard, and brave enough to sit at the table with anyone to make the world better. That admiration is what makes us safe. It is what makes countries want to be our allies instead of our enemies. But today in South Africa, that image of America took a serious hit. When the world looked at the United States, they didn't see the confident, smiling face of a leader. They saw a country that looked angry, closed off, and resentful. They saw a nation that picked up its ball and went home because it didn't like the rules. And that changes how people see us. You see, influence isn't just about money or muscle, it is about attraction. When we boycott major events, when we act like the world is out to get us, we stop being the country that everyone wants to be like. We start looking like just another grumpy power protecting its own pile of gold. And when that happens, the American dream starts to lose its shine. I worry about the young people watching this unfold around the world. I worry about the student in Johannesburg or the entrepreneur in Mumbai who used to look at America as the gold standard of democracy and openness. Today, they are looking at China. They are looking at Europe. They are seeing leaders who are showing up, shaking hands, and building the future, and they are thinking, maybe America isn't the future anymore. Maybe the future belongs to someone else. That is a tragedy. We spent a century building a reputation as the shining city on a hill. We built a brand that stood for hope, but you cannot be a beacon of hope if you turn off the light and lock the door. We are trading our legacy of leadership for a moment of isolation, and we are letting the world forget why they loved us in the first place. We are making ourselves smaller, and the world is starting to adjust to a smaller America. They are starting to make plans that don't include us. And once that respect is gone, once that special feeling about America fades, it is incredibly hard to get it back. In the final part 10, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to tell you exactly what we need to do to fix this. I'm going to give you a call to action because we cannot just sit here and watch our influence crumble. We have to be the ones to demand better. We have reached the end of this story, but honestly, the real work is just beginning. We have talked about the empty chair in Johannesburg. We have talked about the confused allies, the emboldened competitors, and the lost business opportunities. It paints a tough picture. It's easy to look at all of that and feel cynical. It is easy to feel like our best days are behind us and that we are destined to become an isolated nation, shouting from the sidelines while the world moves on. But I don't believe that. And I know you don't believe that either, because here is the truth that no boycott can ever change. America is not just a government. It is not just one administration or one president. America is you. It is your hard work, your creativity, your kindness, and your belief in a better tomorrow. The empty chair at the G20 might represent the current leadership's choice, but it does not represent the American spirit. We have been through hard times before. We have made mistakes before, but every single time we have corrected course. We have stood up, dusted ourselves off, and walked back to the head of the table. We fix things. That is what we do. But we can only fix this if we stop accepting isolation. We have to demand leaders who understand that strength comes from showing up, not staying home. We have to demand a foreign policy that fights for your job and your security, not one that feeds on grievance. We deserve a president who isn't afraid to look the world in the eye. We deserve a government that builds bridges, not walls. And we deserve to be proud, truly proud, of the face we show to the world. Now, I need you to do something. This conversation we are having right here, it is vital. The mainstream news might move on to the next scandal in 24 hours, but we are digging deeper. We are telling the stories that actually matter to your life, but we cannot do it alone. If you believe that America should be leading the world, not hiding from it, I need you to like this video right now. It helps us get this message out to more patriots like you. I want you to go down to the comments section. Tell me, do you think America's stronger alone or stronger with allies? I want to hear your voice. And most importantly, if you want to be part of the solution, if you want to be part of a community that understands the stakes, please subscribe to the channel. And if you can, take that extra step, hit the join button and become a member. Whether we have 1,000 members or 1 million, every single one of you helps keep this truth alive. We need you on this team. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring about this country. Let's not give up on what America can be. Let's get to work and let's make sure the world knows that the American people are still here and we are ready to lead again. God bless you.